Alrighty, hey guys, what's going on? This is Max. It's another good day, and I said yesterday that I would take some time out to answer some marketing questions for you all out there in Facebook land, and so that's why I'm here. It's what I came to do. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it yesterday. Yes, I had other plans for me, but here we are today, taking our revenge. So I'm going to open up this post that I put out yesterday and just see what the questions are and just go through them sequentially. I know some of you slid into the DMs to ask your question there, and I'll see if I can get to some of those as well, whilst protecting the details of the innocent. So let's see, let's get into it. First one was from Brighton. Brighton says, how many can I ask? Kiki. Uh, by the way, does it make sense for guys, like when you're on Facebook and you see a guy saying Kiki, does that make sense? It's never made sense to me. That seems like such a girlish thing to do. Like guys, we can lol, we can but like anyway, Brighton says, my most itching question is about which social media platform to use, Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or what, which is the best for a new business. For a new business, well, first of all, I don't think it matters whether your business is new or old. That's not the variable, but there are variables, and this question is probably best answered contextually to your particular case because it really does depend on what kind of business you have, and more specifically, what your audience or who your audience is. That's how you decide which platform to focus on. So, for example, if you are selling, enterprise level software to 45 to 55-year-old business owners and managers, then Instagram might not be for you. Snapchat is definitely not for you. So it does depend on who your audience is. You want to do the research. You want to do the work of actually knowing exactly who your audience is. Businesses that tend to not do well or tend to struggle are businesses that say that, my customer is everyone. Anyone is my customer. That's a bad way to go about it. Your customer is a very specific person with a very specific worldview, with a very specific problem that you can help solve. So you want to know who your customer is. When you know who your audience is or who your customer base is, then you can choose which social media platform to go for. Generally, I like to start off with Facebook because Facebook is the largest social media platform by numbers. A lot of people are on Facebook, especially in our country. So I definitely advise using Facebook, but you might also find that there's merit in other ones. So if you're targeting people who are really young, um, you might go for Instagram. If you're targeting people who are super young, upcoming, you might go for even Snapchat. If you're targeting people who are business leaders, then LinkedIn might be a good choice for you as well. But generally speaking, I like to start off with Facebook, and then I sort of expand into other platforms. That's how I go about it, especially here locally. So that's what I would advise. On what platform? Hope that answers your question, Brighton. Feel free to ask a follow-up question if it doesn't, and then I'll see if I can help you out. Next question is sorry. Atha says, how do you come up with a solid marketing strategy for an SME in the context of sub-Saharan Africa? How do you come up with a solid Okay, so first of all, that word "come up with," um, it's probably a good lesson for us to learn here. My personal view on strategy is that it's not something that you come up with. So strategy is not, for me, the result primarily of um, being creative. It's much more the result of being inquisitive. So less than, not so much a result of creating a strategy. I think it's better understood as sort of discovering or unveiling a strategy that's already laid out for you in the market. And what I mean by that is that I think that good strategy comes out of asking questions and receiving good answers to those questions. Questions like, who is my audience? Like I was saying to Brighton just now, who is my audience? What do they care about? How do they articulate their problems? Who are my competitors? What are my competitors promising versus what I can promise? You want to understand your market and understand your business as much as possible by asking questions. What kind of questions? You're looking for questions that reveal the mindset and the space that your audience is in, that reveal what kind of offers you can make, what kind of guarantees that you can make. You're looking for insights that will reveal to you things like which platforms and which opportunities and which collaborations and what kind of content and which channels. You're looking for that kind of content, that kind of information, and you're asking questions based on that. The more questions you have answers to, I feel like you're going to see that your strategy is revealed to you more or less. Of course, there is some work to do after that. Once you've got answers to those questions, there's many different ways to interpret even the same answer, and so there's some work to do on that front. So I think, Atha, in the context of sub-Saharan Africa, then you want to know, because again, I don't know what business you're into, but you want to know things about your marketplace. Primarily, I think that's the best way to formulate strategies, understanding your marketplace in sub-Saharan Africa. Um, in our particular context, not everybody's going to be online, depending on what kind of business that you're into, or not everybody's going to be on Facebook. They might be on WhatsApp, probably, and so you might need to sort of tilt your strategy in that direction. But again, the point about strategy that I'm trying to make is that you've got to ask a lot of questions. Ask questions about who they are, what they care about, how much they're willing to pay, who's currently making promises to them. Ask questions about what kind of offers you can create. Ask questions about what the mindset is of your audience. Ask questions about, you want to ask a lot of questions, and that's how good strategy is formulated. Strategy is less about, hey, Max is just a brilliant guy and he just comes up with amazing things. There are some people like that. There's people who can do that. And I've done it in the past for sure. But I think that the best strategies, the most effective strategies, the strategies that actually land up in a sale, strategies that actually land up growing businesses are the kind that come from market insights. And so that would be my advice, Atha. Let me know if that's helpful. Craig is next, and Craig says, thanks, Max, Suta. I can really make use of some tips on how to put together a solid marketing campaign. How to put together a solid marketing campaign. I'm in a situation where I need to do this for a company, and honestly, I haven't had a success yet in this. I've tried 2 previous times with poor results. Mostly, I feel like I'm not sure what all the moving pieces should be. Okay, so Craig is talking about how to put together a marketing campaign, and he's not sure what the pieces should be. Okay, let me go this direction. So when it comes to creating a marketing campaign, and there's lots of different ways to answer this question, but generally speaking, I like to look at 5 main components that are involved in putting together a marketing campaign. Each one is important. They're not all equally important, and so you don't spend the same amount of time and money and energy on each one. But understanding what those 5 components are can really help you see a bigger picture when it comes to creating a marketing campaign, and then it's just a matter of putting together that sequence in the right order. So let me just give you a rundown of what these 5 main components are. Number 1 is your audience. Your marketplace is always the most important factor in marketing. Understanding who you're talking to is always the most important thing. So the audience is number 1. Number 2 is the offer, what you're actually offering to them, the value that you're offering to them in exchange for what you're trying to get from them. So if you're asking for $1,000 from them, what do they get for their $1,000? Now, a lot of people tend to think of their offer as their product, and that's not the same thing. An offer is much larger than the product, because the product is just a component of a good offer. A good offer can comprise also of good payment terms. It can comprise of a guarantee. It can comprise of bonuses and premiums and all kinds of things. So learning how to put together a good offer is one of the biggest and most important components. I would say the second most important component after the market when it comes to putting together a campaign. The third one would be the actual copy. Now, some of you are not necessarily familiar in this market, this local market, familiar with copywriting. It's a whole industry all on its own, and it's very, very powerful. I spent many years doing that. And the whole idea behind copy is that you're choosing words, and how to articulate ideas can be the make or break in whether a transaction is made. And so learning how to put together and word and communicate your ideas to people in a way that gets their attention, educates them, overcomes their objections, and all that sort of thing is very, very important. And that's that subject of copy. And so that's the third component that I consider extremely important. The fourth one would be something I like to call the flow. So some of you may not be familiar with marketing funnels, but the idea is that you're taking people through a process, through a journey from one state of mind all the way to the final state of mind where they are ready to make a buying decision in your favor. And that flow represents the pieces of the sequence of communication pieces that you're going to send to these people to take them through that journey until they're ready to make a buying decision. Flow is extremely important. What comes first, what comes second, what comes last is very, very important. First, you want to grab their attention, for example. That might be something that you do on Facebook. Then you might pull them onto your website where you're going to try and convert them and get their details. And you might send them a sequence of emails, or you might give them a call. You might do all kinds of things. But that flow is very, very important. And that's the fourth component. The fifth one, and this is probably where a lot of people, especially conventional businesses, tend to spend most of their money, most of their budget, and their time, which is a sad thing because this is the least important thing. But also important is the aesthetics, or the graphics, let's put it that way, the visual components, the visual representation of how these ideas are represented to people. So this is your graphic design, and this is your what the brochure looks like, what the website actually looks like from a visual point of view. It's also important because it helps communicate certain things, and it helps people to understand and to grasp ideas quickly. But those are the five main components. So when you're putting together a marketing campaign, you want to have your finger on the pulse of each of those five things. You don't have to do them all at the same time. There's a sequence to doing it, and they're not all equally important. But I sort of lay them out for you there in the sequence that I've found to be the right sequence in terms of importance. So, Craig, I hope that helps to you to see the big picture of how a marketing campaign, or at least what the moving pieces are, you should have your eyes on. Let me know if that helps. Next one is from Tadiwa. Tadiwa says, why not do a live? Okay, Tadiwa is suggesting that I should do this live, and I love doing live, and I think that's a great way to do it. Thank you for that advice, Tadiwa. I'm going to do that next time, time and Zessa allowing. Okay, Miranda says, I have recently developed a strong liking to art. I haven't started anything professionally because I've only made a few things of art. And then coincidentally, just this weekend, I bumped into a guy who does live drawings. He's good, really good. He charges very little for his portraits. I have always wondered what it would be like to have a gallery. I talked to him. Now I want to know how to approach him with a proposal of how I can become an agent selling his art. Okay, so she wants to know how she can put together a successful proposal for this guy. Okay, he's an artist. I would like to help him do what he can't, negotiate his sales. I have absolutely no idea how, but I want to make this happen. I can see it in my mind. I need to know how to make this real. How would you suggest I go about this? Okay, that's a good question. Who's that, Miranda? How to put together a successful proposal. Okay, so again, just like I was taking Craig through the components of a campaign right now, it's going to be very similar for a proposal, but let me give you a slightly different framework to think about. When it comes to a proposal, here's a simple framework for you to use. The first thing that you want is you want to offer a massive reward. So you want to offer somebody something that they really, really want. You've got to be able to lay out or articulate the value of the thing that you're offering to them. This is the most important thing. This is how you lead with your proposal. If you come to somebody and you say, like some of you have inboxed me and you say, hey, Max, I want this from you. Well, that's not a great way to initiate your proposal. What you really want is to get into the mind of that person and then offer them something that they really, really want. That's the first and most important thing when it comes to a proposal. So you want to offer them as much value as you possibly can, and then articulate that value in the easiest and simplest way possible. I hope that makes sense. And then sort of almost the opposite of that is you want to make it as risk-free as possible. So anytime two people are in a transaction, one person tends to be taking more of a risk than the other person, and usually that's a customer, or usually that's the person who's receiving the proposal. You're asking them to take a much larger risk. Invest in my business, buy my thing. But what if your thing doesn't work? What if I invest in you and then you don't give me back my money, or I don't get a profit or a return on my investment? So most times it's people who are receiving the proposal who are being asked to take the majority of the risk in a transaction. You want to reverse that dynamic. You want to reverse that dynamic by offering them a risk reversal in some cases. So it might be, this is why when you buy something expensive like a TV or a new set of sofas for your lounge, they'll offer you a guarantee or a warranty. They are reversing the risk. They're answering that question in your mind, like, what if this thing doesn't work? What if it doesn't do the thing that I needed to do? Then what? Well, then they reverse the risk by taking on that risk themselves. You want to figure out ways to reverse the risk in any proposal that you're putting together, whether it's this artist or whatever kind of business that you're into. So that would probably be the two main things. Go back and listen to what I said to Craig about the various components involved in a campaign, because you can use those sort of things. You can adapt them to your situation. But remember these two big things: offer massive value and then reverse the risk. That's what makes something irresistible people. That's what makes people say, look, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that sort of thing. So that would be my two main things. There's other components, but I think that should at least get you on the right path. Tawanda, my main man, it's been a long time. He says, how do I deal with a controlling client like the one from hell? Okay, like the one who doesn't even trust you, but still wants to work with you. You know, the one who acknowledges you know better, but still want to tell you everything to do. Man, that's a good one. There's a couple of different directions you can go with that. You can be fussy. I'm quite fussy with clients that I choose. In fact, I'm very, very fussy. I tend to reject a lot of proposals and a lot of opportunities because I don't like to work with just anyone. But sometimes you're not in position to do that, and sometimes you really need the opportunity, or you want the money, or it's a good contract, or it's a good gig, and then you might need to compromise. Look, if you do compromise, then I think it's important to lay out expectations right in the beginning. So don't wait for situations to come up. Lay out expectations right in the beginning. I would just have a frank conversation with somebody in the beginning and say, listen, John, this is how I work and this is how I'm able to get the best results for my clients. Usually when someone else is trying to control the process, it's because they've lost confidence in your ability to take them where they're trying to go, or they're not exactly sure about your ability to do it. And so I think that's sort of what you want to sort of ease. In this particular situation, I don't know. Maybe it's a personality thing, maybe it's a whatever, but it might just be just a hard conversation that you need to have with him and say, hey, listen, Mr. Moyo, this is what's going to help me get you the results that you need. I need to be able to do what I do best. I've done this a lot of times. Just trust me. And then if you've got some input, look, client is always going to have input. I have clients who send me ideas and all sorts of things every day, and I enjoy it because it means that they're engaged in the process. It means that they care about the result. That's the best kind of client to have. You don't want a client who's like who doesn't care and who's not involved. But I do understand what you're saying. I think that it's just best to set the expectations early, and then if you have a good working relationship with them, you should be able to have honest conversations, even if things that you didn't anticipate come up in the beginning. The final alternative is just to fire the client. I've had to do this sometimes. You fire a client. Sometimes a client isn't the best for your business. Sometimes they might eat away at your ability to perform and your ability to grow your business. And sometimes it's worth firing a client. One of my biggest breakthroughs, in fact, a couple of years ago in business, came as a result of personality differences I was having with a particular client, and it was sort of a race to see who would fire the other one first. And they fired me first, but it was one of the biggest and best things that ever happened to me because so much of my mind space and my time and my energy and the investments I could make were freed up, and then my business could grow. So yeah, that's the worst case scenario. I hope you don't have to do that. So I hope that helps. Let's see, anybody else? Anybody? Um, Okay, so Damien also had a question, but your question is quite tricky, Damien. I'm gonna inbox you, mate. I'm gonna inbox you because yours is quite tricky, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus to answer that kind of question. Um, but anyway, that looks like it for now, guys. I hope that it's been helpful. I want to do some of these question and answer things more regularly, more frequently. I know a lot of you have asked me questions in the last couple of weeks in my inbox. I don't always get to them, and I apologize for that. Sometimes it's just too busy. But if you do have questions, I'm going to try and create these sort of videos or something of the kind more frequently. I'm also starting a podcast where I share some of my thoughts on these things, and I do answer questions on there as well. If you want to know the details about that, holler at a brother in the inbox or on the wall or whatever it is, and I'll send you details as soon as they are ready. In the meantime, this is Max, and I am out.